Hello, Darklings, Lightlings, and everybody in between. How are you today? I'm doing pretty good. So, as you may have noticed, I've started to talk a bit about the Norse pantheon, and it's for a reason. I've been having a lot of spiritual things happening that I want to talk about, but first, I think it's important to kind of deliver to you guys a bit of the mythology and stuff, and then later go over some of the spiritual connections or experiences that I have been having pertaining to the Norse pantheon, and I can't wait to share it. However, I do think that the mythology, the lore, and other symbology that we can use is important to talk about. That way, when I do get into my experiences, you will see the connections a bit better. So I'm really excited about it, and I hope you guys will enjoy it. And if you're new here, consider subscribing, and if you're joining me again, thank you so much. Alrighty, I'm so excited. So today we're going to go over a bit about the Norse creation story, a little bit on Yggdrasil, but my next video will probably be more in-depth about Yggdrasil and the 9 worlds. So let's get into it. Around 700 CE to 1100 CE, Christianity began to push through the world, their beliefs, and converting pagans and destroying pagan temples, as well as written books or texts pertaining to their culture. During this time, an Icelandic man by the name of Snorri Sturluson saw how religious organizations were destroying a very ancient culture and their beliefs, so he took it upon himself to document everything he could about the Norse culture, the mythology, beliefs, songs, poems, and basically all the knowledge that he had about the Norse, lest their gods and their culture become extinct. The book he wrote was called the Prose Edda. Snorri wrote the info in a story-type format to evade any repercussions from the Christians. Other pantheons with similar stories, like Greek, are considered more ancient only because of written texts, or basically who wrote it first. However, this does not mean that the Norse mythology or their beliefs are not just as ancient or older than other pantheons. For centuries, the Norse would pass these stories down generation to generation before anyone actually wrote it. With the small history talk aside, let's go over the Norse creation story and how the universe was made. In the beginning, there was only darkness that swarmed with chaos. Few worlds existed, and they were strictly elemental. To the north was Niflheim, a world of ice, and to the south was Muspelheim, a world of fire. The dark chaos that rested between these worlds was called Ginnungagap, described like a void. Muspelheim, the fire, began to melt the ice of Niflheim, and creations from both of the worlds began forming in the ice, the giant Ymir. The second born from the 2 worlds' venom was a cow called Adumla, who gave Ymir substance. Ymir fell asleep, giving birth to a son and a daughter by his arms, and his legs emerged a 6-headed son. These children would give birth to the frost giant race called Jotuns. The cow who fed herself from licking ice blocks eventually unearthed Buri, who was frozen until the cow freed him. He had a son called Bor and he married Besla. Together they had 3 sons, Odin, Vili, and Ve. Together they killed Ymir to bring order to the world and to stop his evil deeds. They used Ymir's flesh to make the earth. His blood spilled so much that it created the oceans and the lakes. His teeth and bones were broken up to make rocks, cliffs, and mountains, and finally they used Ymir's skull to create the sky. Then they placed 4 dwarves at each side of the directions, or corners of the earth. It is said that when we look at the sky, we see Ymir's thoughts and creations that dwell through his brain, through the clouds. And the dwarves, Ostra is the name of east, Vestra is west, Nordra is north, and Sudra is south. Next, Odin and his brothers took sparks from Muspelheim and scattered them all over the sky to light up the earth. At last, Midgard was made. Now Odin thought it needed people. On the beach, he and his brothers came across an ash tree log and an elm tree log. The first man and woman was created, carved from these trees. Odin breathed life into them. Next, his brother gave them spirit and light and gave them consciousness and movement. And the last brother gave them speech, hearing, sight, and senses. They named their creation Ask, meaning ash tree, for the first man, and Embla, meaning elm tree, for the first woman. Odin then built Asgard in the cosmos so he could look over all the worlds of Yggdrasil. The earth was considered male and female, and the offspring of Odin. Fjorn, the feminine earth, and Fjorgyn, the masculine earth. Together, Odin and Frigg gave birth to the Aesir. A giant named Udunfari gave birth to a son and daughter and saw how beautiful they were, and named them the sun and the moon. The Aesir thought the giant was so arrogant to name his children after the sun and the moon, so the Aesir thought the giant arrogant for naming their son and daughter after the moon and the sun. So they tasked his children to pull the sun and moon around the sky in chariots, forever chased by 2 wolves until Ragnarok. The rainbow was then created as a link, a bridge between Asgard and Midgard, or the other worlds connecting to Yggdrasil, so that the gods could walk across it and descend into Midgard, or one of the other worlds in Yggdrasil. The rainbow was called Bifrost, or Bifrost. When the Norse seen a rainbow, it was a sure sign that the gods were coming or leaving Midgard. Take note of the Bible story of God creating the rainbow as a promise to never flood the earth again, and the relation of the rainbow to the chakras. I'll let you come up with your own ideas or interpretations with that. Feel free to speculate in the comments. Now, I will touch on Yggdrasil briefly, or the world tree, tree of life in Norse mythology. My next video will be more in depth on Yggdrasil and the 9 worlds, and more of the creatures that dwell within it. Yggdrasil is at the center of the cosmos and connects to 9 different worlds or realms. It was said to be a huge ash tree, but that is debated. Along with these worlds, many creatures reside at various areas in the tree. And as discussed in my previous video, Odin hung himself on Yggdrasil for 9 nights as a sacrifice to himself to gain knowledge of rune staves and magical spells. Also, the well of Mimir, Odin sacrificed his eye to drink for wisdom, and it resides at the bottom. The Norns, which are 3 sisters who weave all the fates and everyone into the world and carves it in Yggdrasil's roots with runes, also reside at the bottom. 4 stags reside in the branches and they chew the leaves. An eagle rests at the top of the tree, Vetfeller. A giant dragon chews at the roots, called Nidhogg. Odin says too many serpents to count reside there, but Nidhogg is the biggest. A squirrel named Radadaskar, who loves drama and gossip and travels between Nidhogg and the eagle, causing endless friction and insults between the two. So likes going, back and forth, roasting people, making stuff up, stirring that pot. It's also said that the squirrel carries the gossip to the Aesir in Asgard and keeps them up to date on all the hot news. The roots of Yggdrasil connect to other realms. Like earlier, I mentioned Nidhogg, the giant serpent. His realm is in the roots, called Giant, if I didn't butcher that. A place of bubbling hot springs is how it's described. Another root holds Mimir, the well of wisdom mentioned earlier as well. Finally, at the last root, the Norns, or the well of Jord, resides. Their names are Jorder and Skuld. From their well, they use the water to heal and to repair the tree. Their side job, besides weaving fates, which change according to our choices and our destiny that we make, the Norns have the power to influence every realm or world by carving runes into the tree. So pretty much they believed if you weren't staying on track on your path, they could get you on track by carving these runes into the tree. Odin could not accept that they knew of these runes and magical systems, yet he did not. So that led him to his sacrifice to himself. To see my video more about Odin's sacrifice and I read the Edda, click the card above. Go ahead, do it. Just, you want to. Alrighty guys, so what do you think about the Norse creation myths? Interesting. Very interesting. I love the symbology, and we're going to get a bit deeper into this, but I just want to kind of deliver this information for now. And a little later, after we get more into it, I'm going to talk about the left-hand path and Nordic magic. Much love, you guys, and I hope you enjoyed this. And what's your favorite part about the Norse creation story? Leave me a comment and let me know. Much love.